Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Rally Masters that was released for the PlayStation 1 back in the year 2000 and in other regions in 2001. So this here kind of comes off the back of the success of the likes of Colin McRae Rally and its sequel, while also V-Rally 2, which were pretty much the go-to rally games on the PlayStation at that time. So it definitely had a lot to contend with in terms of the playability, because those three games, as I mentioned, were fantastic and they're among some of the best rally games ever made, even to this day. So where does Rally Masters actually fit in on this here? It actually got decent reviews in magazines, although it didn't get as good reviews as the three previous games, as I mentioned, and due to a number of reasons. Graphically, the game is actually really good. It's definitely one of the best looking rally games on the PlayStation by far. Even one of the best looking racing games in general. But it actually was just down to the fact is that the game was quite difficult literally to pick up and play. It wasn't the simplest game to master, respectively, especially as a newbie new to racing games, because the handling on the car, it was trying to be more a bit of both. Like, it had arcade elements, but it also tried to be more like a simulation game. But the handling characteristics on the car, although good, wouldn't have been as fluent as the likes of the Colin McRae series or even V-Rally 2, for instance. It left a lot to be desired, because at times, even though you were driving some really cool cars in the game, sometimes it felt like that the handling was a bit sluggish, and it also left that the cars felt like sometimes you were driving a tank. You try to go around the corner even at a relatively low speed and you still end up hitting the wall. But to make matters more difficult was that the computer AI was ramped up really difficult, because it was difficult to win races in it. If you could master the tracks and master the handling of the car, you would have a good chance. But if you screwed up at all at any point in the race, you may forget about it. You won't actually win a race in it at all. It's very unforgiving. But that's not to take away from the fact that it is actually a decent game to play. It may not have as much in comparison to the previous games that I mentioned. For a start, like it has quite a decent amount of tracks in it. It has 20 licensed cars, but it doesn't have as many cars available as what it would have been in some of the other titles based on rally games on the PlayStation back in the day. But it had enough definitely there for good playability. There was definitely a good multiplayer aspect to this game, so if you actually had a few of your mates around, you would actually get quite a bit of enjoyment out of this. But again, that's if you weren't getting frustrated with the handling physics of the car. It's definitely not the worst handling game and that you would play. It's actually very decent. It just wouldn't be as fluent compared to some other racing games that are out there. But one of the main characteristics that it actually has going for it, that it's actually one of the better looking racing games on the PlayStation back in the day. And it is actually an enjoyable experience. It's definitely different, so it is. But I think it just came out a little too late on the PlayStation, because the fact is the success of Colin McRae Rally alone was enough to really kind of set that as the benchmark for rally games in general. So anything that came out after that, it really needed to step up a notch in order to really see any sort of success. It did have its own fan base. There is a lot of people that do really like this game, but if you compare it to other games, it is a little bit on the lacking side. But that's not necessary to say that it isn't an enjoyable experience. It actually is. It's just there are better games on the PlayStation. But I remember actually when this did actually come out, and I actually did want to actually buy this, because I was big into, like, say, racing games, and I wanted to experience as many games as I could back in the day on the PlayStation. So whenever I had a little bit of money, I would try to get to buy as many games as I could if I could afford it. But at the time as well, and due to different reasons, if I was going to buy a game, usually I'd be going to buy something else, and I would actually see this. But more often than not, what actually happened was, if you did see it on the shelf in the game store, it was always a lot more expensive. Even after about a year or two after its release, the game was always very expensive. It became that it was actually hard to find. When you did go into a game store, they were still charging nearly up in like 40 Irish pounds, which back then, before the euros came in, and it was actually quite weird that they were still charging high price for a game that had been out a while, when you could consider that you could get other rally games on the platform, like they were either on the platinum shelf or that they were kind of at a discount. So you could literally, even the Colin McRae games, you could get them like for like £20, which was a steal. So you'd nearly want to opt in to get that instead of paying full price for this here. So it was quite weird. It definitely took a while for this game to really drop in price from what I noticed back in the day. Now it may be wrong, maybe in other places it might have dropped down. It's just it obviously maybe has to do with the shops and stuff like that I was going to back in the day. But I genuinely definitely wanted to pick it up, because I remember actually going into the game stores. There was one I do remember in particular where I nearly did buy it, that I actually was going to get it, and it was like down to like £20, but for some reason I just didn't buy it. I don't know why. I think I had my eye on something else, and I think I just I remember picking it up and I went to go and buy it, and then I was kind of like, I hesitated and then I put it back down again. But I kind of regretted not actually getting it or getting to experience it. But at the same time, I'm getting to experience it now, so that's all that matters. And from what I have played of it, for me it definitely, there's a lot of similarities to the games that I mentioned earlier in the video, but it definitely it just lacking a little bit more. It wouldn't be as good as those 3 games as I mentioned, but it is still a very good game. So it definitely is an enjoyable experience. So if you're into your rally games at all and you do like the likes of racing games on the PlayStation 1 era, I do highly recommend checking it out, because it does have a really good selection of cars. There's a good multiplayer aspect to it, and the selection of cars are actually really cool. You have a good mix between the cars of that era, plus you had a couple of Group B rally cars as well. So it definitely was something to look into. So it was. And for me, it was a good experience just to kind of try it out, because it was one of those games that I had actually wanted to play for years. I really did. So at least now I've gotten the chance to play it, and I'm not, like, to be honest, I'm not disappointed at all. It is actually a decent game. It's just if I compare it to other games, as I mentioned, there is something probably a wee bit lacking, but that's not to say it's an enjoyable experience. If you actually sit down with it and actually give it a bit of time, it is actually really good. And it's definitely one of the better looking racers on the PlayStation by far. So it definitely is worth checking out. So I'd like to know your thoughts on Rally Masters on the PlayStation. What did you think of it? Were you a fan of it back in the day? And if so, what are your experiences on it? Let me know down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like. Also hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future content, and also feel free to share the video, as I am going to be exploring a lot more of these style of games on the PlayStation and trying to explore different types of games and sharing my thoughts and experiences with everyone. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.